There comes a moment in life when the dynamic between parents and children begins to shift. For years, you nurture them, support them, sacrifice for them, only to wake up one day and realize something feels different. Maybe they brush off your advice, dismiss your opinions, or even speak to you in a way that stings. Maybe, worst of all, they make you feel like a burden, and that hurts. If your children have started treating you with less respect than you deserve, you might feel frustrated, even angry. You may want to remind them of all the love, effort, and years you poured into their lives. But here's the hard truth. Anger won't fix it. In fact, it often pushes them further away. Instead, there's a better way. A way to regain their respect, without arguments, without resentment, and without feeling like you have to fight for it. Today, I'm going to share 6 powerful shifts you can make when your children don't show you the respect you deserve. These aren't just small adjustments. They're game changers that can transform how they see you. Some of these may surprise you, but if you stick with me until the end, you'll discover exactly how to reclaim your place as a respected, valued presence in their lives. So, let's dive in. Action 1. Stop chasing their approval. One of the biggest mistakes parents make, especially as they grow older, is trying too hard to keep their children happy. Maybe you've done it yourself. You go out of your way to accommodate them, say yes when you really want to say no, constantly put their needs ahead of your own, hoping that if you just do enough, they'll appreciate you more. But here's the truth. The more you chase their approval, the less they respect you. Respect isn't earned through self-sacrifice, it's earned through self-respect. If you're always bending over backward, always giving in, always trying to keep the peace, what you're really teaching them is that your feelings don't matter. And once they start believing that, it's easy for them to take you for granted. I once knew a woman named Margaret. She was a strong, independent woman in her younger years. But as she got older, she let her children take the lead in every decision. She rearranged her entire life around their needs, silenced her own opinions, and even ignored the way they spoke down to her. "I just want to keep the family together," she told me once. But what happened? Her children stopped valuing her. They saw her as someone who would always adjust, always agree, always stay silent. She thought she was keeping the peace, but in reality, she was losing her voice. If your children don't respect you, the solution isn't to demand it. It's to stop acting like you need it. Set boundaries. Say no when you have to. Speak your mind, even if they don't like it. Because the moment you start respecting yourself, they'll start seeing you in a whole new light. And in time, respect will find its way back to you. Action 2. Don't argue. Lead by example. When your children brush off your words, talk over you, or treat you with disrespect, your first instinct might be to argue, to remind them of everything you've done, to demand that they listen. But let me share a truth that can save you years of frustration. Arguing never works. Think about it. When was the last time you forced someone to respect you just by debating with them? Respect isn't won through words. It's earned through presence. It's in the way you carry yourself, in the way you respond when others test your patience. If you meet disrespect with anger, all you're doing is proving to them that they have power over you. I once knew a man named Frank, a retired teacher who had once commanded a classroom with confidence. But at home, his grown children treated him like an afterthought. They dismissed his advice, brushed off his concerns, and even laughed when he tried to correct them. At first, he fought back, trying to prove he still deserved their respect. But the harder he pushed, the worse it got. Then one day, Frank did something different. Instead of arguing, he started listening. Really listening. He stopped chasing respect with words and instead carried himself like a man who already had it. He spoke calmly, with wisdom, without the need to win. And slowly, his children noticed. They saw a man who wasn't desperate for their approval, who didn't need to prove himself. He simply was a figure of strength. So, if your children don't respect you, don't fight for it. Show them what respect looks like by the way you treat yourself. Hold your dignity. Speak with confidence. And most importantly, never lower yourself to their level. Because when you stand your ground with grace, they will feel it. And in time, they'll follow your lead. If you're still here and finding these insights valuable, comment number 2 below to let me know you're with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, take a second to hit that button and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's move forward. Action 3. Withdraw your emotional dependence. One of the hardest lessons of aging is realizing this. You can't depend on your children for emotional fulfillment. You may love them deeply, and of course you want them to love and respect you in return. But the moment they sense that you need their approval to feel valued, the balance of power shifts. Here's the reality. People, even your own children, respect those who are emotionally independent. When you rely on them for validation, affection, or attention, it puts pressure on them. And instead of feeling grateful, they feel burdened. They might pull away, they might become impatient or even irritated. And the more you chase their love, the less freely they give it. Action 3. Withdraw your emotional dependence. I once knew a woman named Helen, a kind-hearted mother who had given everything to her children. As they grew older and got busy with their own lives, she found herself waiting by the phone, hoping they'd call. But when they didn't, she called them instead. Too often, she reminded them how much she missed them, how she wished they would visit more. But instead of bringing them closer, it pushed them away. Her calls became an obligation, something they felt guilty about rather than looking forward to. Then one day, Helen did something different. She stopped waiting. She stopped calling first. Instead, she started focusing on herself, picking up new hobbies, going out with friends, taking care of her own happiness. And something surprising happened. Her children started calling more. They started respecting her time, seeing her as someone with a full life of her own. The lesson is simple. The less you depend on your children to make you feel needed, the more they will start valuing your presence. When you show them that you can stand strong on your own, they will start respecting you, not out of obligation, but because they genuinely admire the life you've built for yourself. Action 4. Set boundaries and enforce them. One of the biggest reasons children lose respect for their parents is because the parents let them. If you allow your children to talk to you disrespectfully, dismiss your opinions, or treat you as if your time and feelings don't matter, they will keep doing it. Not because they are bad people, but because people, especially family, will always treat you the way you allow them to. Setting boundaries doesn't mean cutting off your children or creating conflict. It means calmly and firmly deciding what kind of behavior you will and will not accept. And more importantly, it means enforcing those boundaries when they are crossed. I remember a man named Robert, a retired businessman who had spent his life running a company with discipline and confidence. But when it came to his adult children, he struggled. They interrupted him when he spoke, dismissed his concerns, and even criticized the way he lived his life. At first, he tolerated it. He told himself it wasn't worth the fight, but over time, he realized every time he stayed silent, he was teaching them that their behavior was acceptable. So one day, Robert changed his approach. When his son interrupted him, he calmly said, "I'll continue speaking when you're ready to listen." When his daughter dismissed his opinion, he simply replied, "You don't have to agree with me, but I expect you to respect me." And when they continued to push his limits, he made it clear. If they couldn't treat him with basic respect, he wouldn't be spending time with them. And you know what happened? They started listening. At first, they resisted, but over time they saw that their father wasn't backing down. He valued himself enough to demand respect, and because of that, they started giving it to him. If your children don't respect you, it's time to ask yourself, are you allowing it? Because if you don't set boundaries, they won't set them for you. And if you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will. If you're still here and finding these insights valuable, comment number 4 below to let me know you're with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, take a second to hit that button and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's move forward. Action 5. Stop giving without appreciation. One of the quickest ways to lose respect is to keep giving to people who don't appreciate it. And as parents, we do this more often than we realize. We give our time, energy, support, even when it's not acknowledged, even when it's taken for granted, even when we're met with nothing but entitlement. But here's the truth. When you give to someone who doesn't appreciate it, you don't build love. You don't build respect. You build expectation. They stop seeing your kindness as something valuable and start seeing it as something they're entitled to. And the moment you stop, they don't feel grateful. They feel inconvenienced. I once knew a man named George, a father who had always been generous with his children. He helped them financially whenever they needed it. He dropped everything to assist them. He even rearranged his life to accommodate their needs. But instead of gratitude, he was met with complaints. They expected more, and the worst part, when he finally needed their help, they were too busy. Then one day, George made a change. He stopped overextending himself. He stopped offering help before it was even asked. And most importantly, he started saying no when he needed to. At first, his children were frustrated. They didn't understand why he wasn't bending over backwards for them anymore. But over time, something shifted. They started valuing his time. They started appreciating his efforts. Because suddenly they realized his generosity wasn't unlimited. It was a gift, not a guarantee. If you feel like your children don't respect your time, your effort, or your kindness, take a step back. Ask yourself, are you giving more than you should? And if so, what would happen if you stopped? Because when you teach people that your generosity is conditional on respect, they will start treating it that way. Action 6. Build a life outside of them. One of the most powerful ways to regain your children's respect is to show them that your happiness doesn't revolve around them. As parents, it's natural to devote ourselves to our children, to make them the center of our lives. But as we get older, that dynamic shifts. And if you've spent your entire life prioritizing them, they may start seeing you as someone who has nothing else going on. People respect those who have their own purpose, their own interests, their own sense of fulfillment. But if your children see that you rely on them for entertainment, validation, or meaning, they might start feeling suffocated. Or worse, they might start seeing you as someone who has no life of their own. So, what's the solution? Start investing in yourself. Find hobbies, build friendships, travel, learn new skills, explore your passions. When your children see you as a complete person, someone who is independent, fulfilled, and thriving, they will respect you more. And the best part? They will start wanting to be a part of your life, not because they feel obligated, but because they genuinely admire who you are. If you're still watching this and finding these insights valuable, comment number 6 below to let me know you're with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, take a second to hit that button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Final thoughts. How to earn your children's respect. Respect is not something you can demand from your children. It's something you inspire through the way you carry yourself, the way you set boundaries, and the way you live your life. If your children have started treating you with less care, less consideration, or less respect, don't waste your energy getting angry. Instead, shift your approach. Stop chasing their approval, because the less you need it, the more they'll give it. Lead by example, because your dignity speaks louder than your words. Withdraw your emotional dependence, because the more self-sufficient you are, the more they'll respect your presence. Set boundaries, because people will only treat you as well as you require them to. Stop giving without appreciation, because when generosity is taken for granted, it loses its value. Build a life outside of them, because people respect those who have their own purpose, joy, and fulfillment. If you do these things, something incredible will happen. Your children will start seeing you in a different light, not as someone waiting for their attention, but as someone who commands respect, simply by being who they are. And in time, that respect will come back to you, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to apply it in your life. Your thoughts matter to us, and reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps us keep creating valuable content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.